Ian Castleberry joining us with Barrett Sports Media, and that's our NFL Gold Nuggets feature with Ian, presented by David Creasman and DC Creasman Jewelers. Ian, how are you on this Thursday, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Hey, man, we are good. Kyler Murray signing with the Cardinals. That just came down not too long ago this afternoon. It is a huge deal, $46 million on average, but 5 years, $230 million, and $161 million of that is guaranteed. You know, he's shown that he could be a great quarterback on several occasions in his first 4 years in the league. But you know, last year when they got off to that fast start and then they kind of faded, you know, there was some criticism with Kyler's leadership, maybe his maturity level. But obviously the Cardinals, and I think they had to do this, Ian, they had to kind of overlook all of that, and hopefully that doesn't pop up again. But yeah, speak to this signing and really the fact that where else could the Cardinals have gone?
Yeah, I think that's really what this comes down to. There weren't any other options. I mean, there were other options. I mean, you know, if they'd gone after like a Baker Mayfield or a Jimmy Garoppolo, as we'll talk about. But in terms of quote unquote franchise quarterback, the Cardinals have pretty much invested in Kyler Murray, and he showed at times that he is certainly capable from a talent standpoint of being that kind of quarterback. He and Cliff Kingsbury, his offensive system, seem to fit really well. You know, maybe Kyler Murray wouldn't be as successful with another team, in another offense, with another coaching staff. But as you pointed out, there are some questions with his leadership, maybe his maturity level, and you think going into his fourth year, maybe there'll be some improvement there. There's probably going to be some concern about Murray's receiving core. You know, DeAndre Hopkins is going to serve that suspension, but they got Hollywood Brown. So when he wasn't injured last year, the Cardinals got off to a 7-0 start. They looked like one of the best teams in the NFL, if not the best team. Kyler Murray looked like a most valuable player. And then once he got hurt, ankle injury, things seemed to go downhill from there. But it's a move the Cardinals had to make. The terms of the contract, to me, are pretty intriguing. I mean, basically, Kyler Murray's contract is Deshaun Watson's contract with just a little bit more, $46.1 million as opposed to $46 million for Deshaun Watson. The difference is Murray's contract is not fully guaranteed, and Murray also doesn't have the highest average annual salary in the NFL among quarterbacks. That is Aaron Rodgers at $50 million with that big contract that he signed with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, Michael, let's, I think overall this will be a good signing by the Cardinals. I have faith that Kyler Murray can turn this around. And I know a lot of folks were wondering, is it going to be worth that kind of money? But these days, got to take that gamble, man.
Got to have the quarterback. Yep. Ian, if you're a Cardinal fan, though, are you just a little bit worried how it seems late in the last two seasons? You know, think of in 2020. To me, he used up all his luck in that game against the Bills when he threw the Hail Murray. But it just seems like toward the end of the last couple seasons, he seemed to have kind of worn down and not been quite effective. We talked about it at the top of the show. If, all they had to do was beat Seattle at home and they win the division, and then the Rams are in the wild card, which could have changed things dramatically in the playoffs. But if you're a Cardinal fan, are you just a little worried about maybe his endurance during the season?
Yeah, I think you have to be. I mean, size is definitely a concern for Kyler Murray. I mean, he's only 24 years old, so he's not going to be necessarily worn down. But I don't know. I still forget that the NFL has a 17-game regular season now after last season, and you wonder how many quarterbacks are actually going to be able to play through 17 games. I don't know if eventually you're going to have to look at teams like the Cardinals kind of having to plan for sort of a load management type situation where, Kyler Murray's going to have to play maybe fewer games. Maybe he should only be expected to play 13, 14 games, or maybe he should only be expected to play a certain number of snaps throughout the season because, as you point out, at his size, I think wearing down toward the end of the season, just after the grind and the beating that you take over a full NFL season. These guys are so much bigger. The guys who are going after Kyler Murray are so much bigger than him that I think that does have to be a concern. Yes.
It's not a bad idea, game management for Kyler Murray, especially let's say they got off to a big lead against an inferior team. Maybe get him out of the game and let the backup take over. Take those opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities. All right, we'll move on. Ian, after talk of a year-long suspension for Deshaun Watson, could it be he only gets up to 8 games?
It sounds like that's going to be that's a surprise given what we've seen, the sheer number of women who filed lawsuits, who brought allegations against Watson. But I think the precedent is going to come into this in terms of what the NFL Players Union is going to argue for Watson. There was talk this week that the union was prepared to sue the NFL if a full season suspension was handed down. And the basis of that is that players are being held to a different standard than, say, owners and people in team management for similar conduct or also examples of sexual and workplace misconduct. And they weren't suspended for, if at all, weren't suspended for an entire season. So pointing out that double standard apparently is what the union will argue. Now, the judge, I'm still kind of looking over the details of this, so I might not be entirely clear on this, but the judge who would be ruling on this, I think as an arbitrator, is looking at this based on the NFL personal conduct policy, not anything as far as the law or criminal type proceedings. So based on those factors, it appears that yes, Deshaun Watson could receive a 2 to 8 game suspension. It sounds like the Browns are expecting that 8 game suspension. I can't imagine the blowback from a public relations standpoint if it was only a 2 game suspension for Deshaun Watson. So what looked to be certain as a 16 game suspension or 17 game suspension, might only turn out to be half the season now.
Thanks a lot, Dan Snyder. I mean, that's where this is probably coming from. They're using that. Why this has suddenly popped into the picture? Yeah, this is directly related, I guarantee you, to Daniel Snyder, Mike, and what's been going on there.
Yeah, let's don't forget 20 years ago, I hate to bring this up, but, Leonard Little, who played here at Asheville High and then had a great career at Tennessee and, sadly got into a car wreck where he was unfortunately drunk and killed a woman, and he got 8 games. He got an 8-game suspension. So I'm sure the Players Association, well, wait a minute, you only gave Leonard Little 8 games, and Deshaun, well, nothing's really been proven in court, so to speak. I'm sure there's a lot of massages there, but, what really do you have? And so it's interesting how this has all come out, but when you think about it, it's not surprising either.
And Ian, how about the Texans' involvement in the Watson case? Remember that team trainer handing out non-disclosure agreements to massage therapists to sign?
It appears that the NFL is not looking at that, and I think that's part of the argument that Watson's team and the Players Union are making here, that if you're looking at suspending Watson, penalizing Watson, well, what about, as you said, the team trainer? What about the team's director of security, Brett Nakara, who drafted this non-disclosure agreement for Watson to give to these women, who arranged for these hotel rooms at the Houstonian, this prestigious Houston hotel, to give Watson the opportunity to have these massages. So these personnel aren't even going to be penalized. Then how can Watson be issued an 8-game, 17-game suspension? And as of right now, it does not appear that Brett Nakara or other members of the Houston Texans are going to be penalized here.
Boy, and thank you for the correction. It's head of security, not the head trainer that was doing the NDAs. Oh, boy. I mean, Mike, this is like the NFL. Yeah.
What's happened here now is it's gotten so big.
It's so frustrating.
But it's gotten so big and involves so many things besides Deshaun Watson that your hands are kind of tied a little bit. And
I get their argument on that. The Watson's people going, hey, you ain't doing anything about the owners and all this, and the Texans. It's kind of a legitimate argument.
Yeah. So
this is just like, wow, man. We'll see how it goes down. Interesting to see how NFL fans react, especially the women who follow the NFL. And, women make up about 35% of the fan base in the NFL. And, we'll see how much this bothers them when this finally comes out. As Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys on the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Nights, thanks to D.C. All right, Ian, no Gronk? No problem. Word on the street has tight end Kyle Rudolph signing with the Buccaneers. What are you hearing on that, Ian?
Yeah, it looks like this is almost a done deal. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers signing Kyle Rudolph, who for years, especially in the early 2010s, I think was considered one of the top tight ends in the NFL. In 2016, he had an outstanding season, 83 catches, 840 yards. This would be more of a depth signing. It appears Cameron Brate is going to be the Buccaneers starting tight end who's already been on the roster, but they do need depth behind Brady. And Rudolph was with the New York Giants last season, was released after a season which he had only 26 catches for 257 yards. But he is a capable tight end, a 10-year veteran in the league. Interestingly, I think Tom Brady has had interest or at least something of a relationship with Kyle Rudolph, because after Rob Gronkowski retired from the New England Patriots, there was a lot of thought that the Patriots were going to go after Kyle Rudolph when he played for the Minnesota Vikings. That trade was never completed, but I think there is a lot of familiarity between Tom Brady and Kyle Rudolph there.
Yeah, man. Mike, I think Kyle Rudolph and Tom Brady, I mean, would forget Rudolph's numbers of recent. I love that combination. As a Panthers fan, I'm like, oh, crap, here we go again.
Well, they lost O.J. Howard to the Bills, so we're hoping that O.J. Howard can get rid of the O.J. Simpson stigma and stuff. So, that's two pretty good tight ends he lost in Howard and Gronkowski. So this is a good pickup for Tampa and something that usually what Tom Brady wants, he gets. So got rid of the coach, got him moved up. So we'll see. Tom hasn't been in the news lately, so we'll certainly do some. Maybe he'll go to the bullfights or something like that.
Ian, see, Mike does not take digs. Mike pulls out like the Bobcat and gets like the U, and he just like starts excavating. It's fabulous. Hey, Steelers Nation in mourning today. Former Steelers wide receiver Charles Johnson passing away at the age of just 50. No cause of death announced yet, but Ian, Johnson's best years of his 10-year career were with Bill Cowher and the Steelers in the mid to late 90s, including a Super Bowl appearance in 1994. It's funny, sadly, when they pass away, you go, oh, yeah, him. Oh, I remember him.
Yeah, 1996, Charles Johnson had a outstanding season, 60 catches, over 1,000 yards. I remember him even when he played at Colorado, and he was an explosive receiver there. Also played with the same quarterback, played with Cordell Stewart.
Right.
So not a star player, maybe not one of the historically best receivers necessarily that Pittsburgh Steelers fans might remember, but some very productive seasons and just a really solid player, filled a role, and somebody I think worth remembering. And I think he also played for the Patriots and the Bills toward the end of his career. Oh, also the Eagles, excuse me. So now there's no information as to what the cause of death may have been. He was found in a hotel room during a welfare check. But, he'd been an assistant athletic director at a high school in Wake Forest. So it's not like, it wasn't known where Charles Johnson was or, what he'd been doing to this point of his life after his football career. No signs of foul play in that hotel room. So, we'll probably get more information, but right now this just appears to be a very sad situation, but maybe not necessarily anything nefarious. But again, those reports have not been made yet.
Exactly.
Too young, age 50, much too young.
My goodness. Ian, finally, it's G time. The Niners have given Jimmy Garoppolo's agents permission to seek a trade. All right, Ian, so which teams could be in the running for Jimmy G?
Well, I would have said the Cleveland Browns at one point. They still have the most salary cap room available, and that would have seemed to be a nice fit. But if Deshaun Watson's only going to be suspended for 8 games, that lessens the urgency for the Browns to get another quarterback to play a full season if they don't think Jacoby Brissett is capable of playing for a full season. And I've seen, maybe you guys have seen this too, I've seen Cam Newton's name associated with the Browns. So
what?
Keep an eye on that if there's an 8-game suspension there.
They can have him.
So I think you could scratch the Browns off any potential list for Jimmy Garoppolo, which I think is now, so that brings us to 2 teams. I think the Houston Texans, that might be the most likely destination. They have a need at quarterback there. And the Seattle Seahawks, who were associated with Baker Mayfield up until the Panthers got him. You do wonder if maybe the Niners have any reservations about trading Jimmy Garoppolo within the division like that to a division opponent and having to face him. or maybe they won't care about such a thing depending on what they get in trade. But yeah, I would narrow it down to the Seahawks and the Texans for a potential Jimmy Garoppolo trade.
It's funny, too, because Colin today, I think near the top of his show, was talking about maybe the Giants being in this. Brian Dable, an offensive guy,
yes.
former Buffalo OC, and the fact that they are not sold, it doesn't seem like they're sold on Daniel Jones, and that maybe that could be a possibility.
Yeah, that's a good fit, too. And I mean, we're talking about stopgap solutions with each of these teams here. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is viewed as a long-term solution for any of these teams. Yeah, that would be quite a statement if they got Jimmy Garoppolo because they didn't think Daniel Jones is capable of being the starting quarterback. And then, with a fresh set of eyes in Brian Daboll looking at Daniel Jones and a new offense, if he doesn't think Daniel Jones is capable of running that offense, better to bring in a proven veteran like Jimmy Garoppolo.
I guess Jake Fromm is not in the Giants' plan anymore either.
Was he in anyone's plans, including your Bills?
He was, he was third string, and he won an exhibition game against Ian's Lions last year at the long pass in the final second. But the Giants got so with all the injuries they had, he ended up starting for the Giants the last couple of games of the season, but did not look like an NFL quarterback. So
that's grading on a curve when you bring up the Lions like that.
I laugh because
it was an exhibition game. An exhibition game.
And yeah, look, I think that would be a great fit for Jimmy G. They got Saquon Barkley, they've got Galloway, they've got they've got some receivers. Galloway, I believe, Kenny Galloway. So they got some weapons there. We'll see how it plays out for sure. Ian, always appreciate you, my friend. Have a great rest of the week.
Okay, great talking to you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks so much,
Always
Ian.
a treat. Thanks, Ian. Be well, buddy. Ian Castleberry's appearance with the Wise Guys is presented by David Creasman and the gang at DC Creasman Jewelers.